Lindenhurst is a village of 27,000 on the south shore of Long Island, New York. These are the people who grew up there and their stories. Everyone I know is from Lindenhurst.
I probably haven't seen you guys since before. Maybe I don't know. I was at like that one Silent Majority show in Brooklyn 8 years ago, but I don't think you guys were at that one.
I was at that one with Joe.
You were at that one.
I saw you briefly.
Okay. Yeah. But I think I arrived off the plane like a couple of hours before that, went straight to that show, and that was it. Yeah, I haven't been around. Like every time I come home, I always mean to meet up with like Joe and stuff, and like it just never works out. and then I'm home for Memorial Day weekend, and he's away in like California or something. I meant to like call into his restaurant and stuff like that, but yeah, since no one lives in Lindenhurst anymore, I'm kind of like, none of us, like Steve is the closest one.
Yeah.
My mom sold the house and everything. So
wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, speaking of Lindenhurst, let's bring it back to the beginning.
Yeah.
How did the Corrigans land in Lindenhurst?
Well, you guys know my dad's from Ireland, and he moved to England first, and then he moved to the States in the 60s, and he moved to Queens, and he met my mom late 60s, I think, early 70s, and my mom was from Staten Island. They got married in 73, had Tommy in 74, and me in 75. We were both born in St. John's Hospital in Queens Boulevard, which I think now is like called something else anyway. And we lived in Jackson Heights for the first couple of years. And then my mom was pregnant with Regina. Like Regina and I, my younger sister, we're only like 11 months apart. They call that Irish twins. So when she was pregnant with Regina, they got the house in Lindenhurst. So we moved in 76, like sometime, I'd say summer of 76. I could be wrong, but around then, yeah. So Regina was born either in Brunswick or Good Sam, and Steve was born in either Brunswick or Good Sam. I don't know which. Probably Brunswick, both of them, I'd say. Which Amityville, I don't even know if that hospital is still there anymore.
No, it is condos now. Yeah.
Really?
Like everything else, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so that's the story with that. And like my dad was a carpenter in the city. Like my mom didn't work, like just watched us. It was 4 kids 1 year apart. So like she was like, that was her deal.
Yeah.
Like, she was the mom. And I vague memories of like when we being really young, like when we first moved into our house on 32nd Street between Albany and Buffalo Avenue. The house came with like a above ground pool, but with like a deck around it with that fake grass, and it was red paint, like everyone had that red paint kind of deck. And I think one of us fell into the pool and they got rid of the pool. But when we first moved in, all the neighborhood, like my mom was, I'd say 30. She was 30 when she had me. So 29 when she had Tommy. Like it's young. That's kind of young now, I guess.
Not at that time, but yeah.
Not at that time,
now it is, yeah.
But she was like, so all like the teenagers from the neighborhood, when my dad would be at work and she was watching us 4, would all come and just swim in the pool. And there was like and they were all about 10 years older than us. And there was like so many kids on our block. Like compare it now to like how my daughter like sees her friends at school, and like there's no one in our neighborhood here. Like, no kids really. Obviously I'm in Ireland, so it's a little different, but the neighborhood here that we're living in Galway in Ireland is similar to Lindenhurst,
Yeah.
It's almost like the city we live in is the size of Lindenhurst. Like, you know what I mean? It's considered a city.
But also, I recently came across a Facebook group of it's just pictures of old skate spots from the 70s and 80s. And like, I forget like how much greener the suburbs were back then. Cause like you see a picture of like a ramp in somebody's backyard or their pool, just lined with trees and bushes. Like it was there was so much more foliage before everything was built over,
Yeah, for like, I mean, what Lindenhurst's Tree City, USA, like,
Yeah, named
um,
after the tree. Yeah,
and it was like, yeah, I remember, like, yeah, summertime, it was just shade. Everything was shaded. So much trees, so much cicadas, and
yeah,
like caterpillars, and like, yeah, there's smells that like I remember, about Lindenhurst and the trees, and I mean in a good way, not like dirty smells,
right.
but it's just like really vivid memories of like our block, 32nd Street. Like this is way before skateboarding, way before the bands like that we were all in. It was like so many kids that just a little bit older than us, and then us coming up, like us and Ryan, and then later on like Rich and stuff, like we played, like it was like manhunt like every day in the summer,
Yep.
kick the can kind of things like that, but like games in the street, like nonstop wiffle ball, like it was just so much activity and fun, and I loved it. Like I would never never knock it. Like, yeah, it was a great place to grow up, like where we lived
Yeah,
in
and
that area near Albany Avenue School, like that whole like area around there.
right. But you were all PH.
Yeah, well,
Pardons.
I was in Albany for preschool.
Yeah.
I think Tommy maybe as well. And then, yeah, kindergarten at OLPH. And there, like, I was class of 89 in OLPH. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was, it's just straight from there. And then, and Tommy was a year older than me. And then Regina and Steve. And then, like, Tommy got into St. Anthony's. And I think he's talked about this before. He had a horrible experience in St. Anthony's. Like
I didn't know about that. No.
Yeah, the rich kids were like relentless, and he had to ride a bus from Lindenhurst all the way to St. Anthony's with
right.
a lot of maniacs like that were horrible to him. So I think he failed out. And so
I believe that's what the line in Recognize is referencing, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. yeah, exactly. In 1989, I failed out of school for the first time. Really, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's like a super high average you have to stay in those schools.
I think
like
so,
70, like 75 or something.
But I think that just a lot of the kids were horrible in there. So like when I was coming from me to like, in OLPH, you had to take like that test to see which Catholic school you might want to get into. It was like kind of like a SAT type thing, Yeah. And I got into like a bunch, and I even got into like some private thing anyway. And but once that Tommy went through that, I was like, I'm going to Lindenhurst. I was like, I'm done. So actually, my freshman year, I had a creative writing class or some class with Tommy. In this, and Artie Philly.
Nice.
Wow.
I think that was 9th or 10th. It was one of the early years we ended up having like the same. Yeah, it was strange. Yeah, but it was cool. Like I'm really. So it was a bit of a culture shock going from Catholic school into Lindenhurst High School.
Definitely was, yeah.
Yeah. You went to OPH as well?
Yeah, I did. And then
Lindenhurst
for
the whole thing.
Yeah,
like from
kindergarten through 8th. Yep.
Okay. And what year did you finish in OPH?
I was 95.
95. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were probably in kindergarten when I was finishing roughly kindergarten or first grade. Yeah. I enjoyed it. Like there was hardly any nuns left, right?
It's a few.
Yeah. Was Sister Joan still there?
She was a sub, so we got her sometimes, but she was.
Did she make you do calisthenics to touch your toes and
jumping jacks?
But like when I was older and would go back to like the kind of like the Italian night, Polish night, whatever, the international feast, and I'd see her, and she was hilarious.
Super cool. Yeah.
And same with like Sister Catherine, same with like Sister Anthony, who became principal, right? Eventually, I think they were like,
yeah.
They were like the coolest ladies, and like laughed and like wanted to know what you were up to. And yeah, it's pretty funny.
Remember once a month we would have like a roller skating night at United Skates in Massapequa.
We did that too.
Yeah. And you would see the nuns like in their street clothes skating, and it was like,
whoa. my big memory of that, the first time we went to United Skates was maybe 87. So I would have been in 7th grade. And like there was like metalhead girls who were like obviously in high there There's no censor, nothing we can
No,
censor
go
here.
for it.
Yeah, no.
There was girls giving guys hand jobs and that dance thing in the middle.
Wow. Scatosaurus was getting some.
It was wild. Like I was like, but that was like I think 87. So that's when like it was like peak, like the beginning, like Motley Crue and all that kind of stuff. So it was like, that's for the first time I would saw like, the studded leather jackets and the gloves, and
it was like the Sunset Strip.
It was 107. I was shocked. I was like, what the hell? I mean, we had some kind of kids who were into metal in our neighborhood, but mostly like growing up, like even before the skating days, like we had neighbors who were in like, might have been like cover bands or bands trying to do original stuff, probably who played similar stuff to like the Good Rats, that band from theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a neighbor who had played drums. He threw out a drum set. Steve got that drum set. We had another that was the Garrix, and that was one of the older brothers, and then the daughter who was like a drum. She was in the marching band. And then we had another neighbor down the road, Scott Geis, who like he played drums, but he had all these guys coming over. I remember must have been around the time when people were able to afford the wireless guitar setup. And I remember him this is down the block from us. I must have been like 10, 11, 12. And like his guitar player playing on the street with the wireless guitar setup. So we had like these beginnings of influences to like music and stuff. Like even then, like Lindenhurst was full of like cover bands and weird. And you'd go to Musicland when it was on that, on the near the New York, whatever, it's John Street, right. Near John Street.
Mm-hmm.
And you just see all these people and you're like, what the hell? We didn't know what we were doing. We just ended up buying like stupid, like, like guitar book, versions of like U2 songs or like different metal bands and stuff, but we didn't know how to read music or anything like that. And, I just we go to Musicland all the time because it was right at the beginning of town. We were allowed to go there.
Yep.
We were like 12,
And I've said in a couple different episodes too, like back in the day, there were always like these random like junker shops that would pop up where people were selling records and just like random t-shirts. Like you could buy Good Rats records or whatever. And like these shops would just come and go.
Yeah.
Like, and who knows who owned them. Yeah.
I don't even know either. Like I'd see more of that kind of stuff too. It was like Busy Bee Mall had a lot of that kind of funny, like strange stuff. Yeah. Geez, like Lindenhurst, it was so much different stuff. Like, right across from OLPH was that big hardware store. And then my parents, so my dad was working in the city, but then he started his own business, and he had his business where they would be building like counters for banks and lots of office refurbs in the city. But then they had a shop right across from where Windish's was. Do you know where Moby Drugs was? And the Black Forest Bakery. So my parents had a shop directly across, which I now think is a little bit of a massage / rub and tug place.
The foot massage place, yeah.
It was either there or where there's like a karate studio or something. And that was called Wooden Things. And that was my parents' store on Wellwood Avenue.
Okay.
And they sold like furniture, unfinished furniture, and like little wooden knickknacks. And in the back was like the shop where they would build the stuff to do this, to work in the city. And so like we would go there after school from like OLPH. And then we go to Windish's, which was like memory wise, like the place where I had my first date was in Windish's. It was like a diner, but it was like, it's not that, it was very similar to the one that's down across from the church.
Gotcha.
Yeah, similar setup. So I don't know when it disappeared. Maybe, I don't know if you guys remember it. Like it might've been just closed before you were like, of that age, but it was better version of that other diner, like not to knock it or whatever, but I took part of my first date in that place, got dumped in that place, all from like 12, 13, 14. And there was so many butcher shops like all along that road as well. And my parents would like my mom would take all four of us to like the liquor store, the butcher shop, and almost all those places, because there was so many kids in Lindenhurst. Like the kids, if you stayed on like the rug mat in the middle of the store and didn't move, you'd get like an Oreo cookie or like a piece of candy. And yeah, so we had that in town. And then my parents, that shop closed, and my dad opened up a bigger factory just near Albany Avenue School on New York Avenue.
Okay.
And that's where we ended up. Like me and Tommy had like our first summer jobs, was like sweeping the floor there, and doing like a bit of sanding and stuff like that, and saw some guys get their fingers cut off, and
Wow.
guys being like, and later on when that shop moved to kind of like along Sunrise Highway past West Babylon, forget the name of that little area over there where there's like stables that connect to Belmont Park.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. You can get there from Southard's Pond if you follow all those rivers. And yeah, I see guys like drinking on their break and smashing the forklift into shit. And there was an architect that had like penthouse like calendars on the wall. My mom worked there as well as like the bookkeeper, and that's the first time seeing that kind of stuff. And it's funny. Yeah. So that's the story. And then my dad, he did that until he kind of like got bought out by his partner / retired. And then my mom like started working for the church after that. No, she did some temp jobs, but then she ended up going back and working for Monsignor Hamilton as his secretary for years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She would book all his trips to Ireland, and
he just recently passed away, like not very long ago.
I think so. Yeah.
Famously seen walking around Lindenhurst every single day.
Every day with the big sunglasses on, yeah.
So I was an altar boy, and then I worked at the church as a sacristan, right? So I got paid to set up the masses, to clean the grounds, to do all this stuff. Met some creeps along the way that worked for the church. Whole different story, whole different podcast episode of that. But like we actually made like, so Monsignor Hamilton had like a equilibrium problem, and he would pass out if he looked up. And me and I don't know if you know the Tunney family, like Vinny Tunney, James Tunney. Anyway, this whole family of some of them worked at the church as well. We had a whole rap song about Monsignor Hamilton. Oh, stop. Based on the Ice Ice Baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
So getting into like junior high school, you guys kind of discovered music, I guess, a little bit before you discovered like any type of local scene. You guys were just starting
definitely
to jam, pick up instruments.
There was that stuff, like the skating kind of like led into all that. That kind of helped us meet each other. And also helped us like, I mean, we all kind of guess I had our different, like Rich, I guess, had his parents were really into music. Our parents weren't at all. Like there was like Tom Jones and Frank Sinatra. That was it. Like AM radio. And then me, Tom and Steve and Gina, like we would go with my parents like every other summer or a couple of summers to East Durham in upstate New York, which is like an Irish resort area. And so you were assigned, it was like very much like the Catholic version of the resort in Dirty Dancing, which is the Jewish one. Similar thing. And so we had so you'd be assigned like a waitress for the week that would serve your family the food, right? And there was this girl, Kim McManus from Pearl River, New York. And she was like, obviously like 5-6 years older than us, jean jacket, punked up hair. And we became good friends with her. She talked about music a lot. And then she sent us a mixtape that had like The Clash, Sex Pistols, whole bunch of stuff. I think maybe even Madness. And we got that tape, and that kind of led into everything for us.
Okay.
So it was a mixture of that tape, skate videos, that music. And then I don't know how, like, or maybe who we saw, like how, maybe it was just the neighborhood. Like we knew that you could start a band, and we started messing around in the basement. And so Steve, like I wasn't invited into Silent Majority. I think I just really focused on skating and stuff. And so but Tommy and Steve, like Steve was a good skater, and then he kind of like gave it up a bit. And so they started the band. Ryan, there was Jim Mallon, there was a kid named Jeremy who was from I think North Lindenhurst. They were the original kind of members, and they even practiced. So there was practices in our basement. When I was working at the church, we actually worked it. So they actually practiced in the gymnasium of OLPH. There were silent majority practices there with the youth group equipment, the youth mass equipment. There was silent majority practice in the OLPH gymnasium. Wow. Yeah, I think that was before Rich was in the band. I think that was Jeremy. Like, yeah, maybe no. Rich was there. There was Jim Allen, Jeremy, Rich, Steve, and Tommy. And then I kind of became, I guess, like we're moving into like when we're like 15, 16, like they started playing shows. And like once I got my license at 17, I became like the designated chauffeur of silent majority.
Okay.
And that was my job but that was my like
road crew
position in the band for many years until like I started like playing myself, you know. But we messed around like before, I guess, Inside and stuff. I messed around with Chris Baldwin and Ryan's sister Kelly and Frank DeMaria. We had this like the Baldwin band. There's a demo somewhere of this. Yeah,
I remember the Baldwin band. I have no idea who was in it or what it was about.
It was me, Frank DeMaria, Chris Baldwin. I played bass. Chris on guitar, Frank DeMaria on drums, and Kelly even sung like for a couple of songs, Ryan's sister Kelly, and it was hilarious. Like, yeah, we never did anything. But actually, before that though, right around that time of that, there was a band. So when we started to go see Neglect, and Neglect was playing shows at the Right Track Inn a lot. I started a band. I was asked to be in a band with Brian Schroeder. These are kids in my age who played drums. Derek Buckley, my age, he was playing bass. Bryant was a skater kid from North Lindenhurst. He played guitar, and I sang. And we didn't have a name, and it was kind of like Burn style, half rap kind of things.
Yeah.
And Bones from Neglect named our band for us and them. Or is it us versus them? I can't even remember. But we opened for Neglect at the Right Track Inn with a bunch of other bands, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done. Like, I still can't. Like, I can play in front of I have played in front of a lot of people, but like when I have to sing, it's like complete
different.
Like,
game, yeah.
No, it's not my thing. I tried it a couple of years ago at like an open mic in Galway, like playing acoustic guitar and singing, and it was terrifying. And I did like try like doing like some solo stuff, but I could do it at home on a laptop, no problem. But singing in front of people, not my thing.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So we played one show. So I get to play with Neglect, which is cool. And then Neglect, I think by the time Inside came around, Neglect was probably gone. And my first real Inside show was Mind Over Matter's last show at the PWAC.
Okay. So I was at your first show.
There you go.
So how did Inside come together?
Yeah, it's all through Eddie. Like really, like I kind of knew how to play guitar, kind of, and I knew Inside. I saw Inside at Justin Skirty's birthday party in Queens. It was just the four of them, so it was Tom, Mike, Craig, and Eddie. And I remember even like, I think it was the first time I ever met Craig was at that party. And I was like, who is this VOD wannabe kid? Craig had like the nose ring.
Yeah.
He looked like, and wearing like the kind of like more of a jockey kind of thing. Like it was the East Meadow crew was totally different than the Lindenhurst crew back then. And then Eddie was like, Eddie, I think basically told them that I was in the band. He says he knows how to play guitar. Don't worry about it. I didn't own a guitar. I didn't own an amp. Eddie gave me this like crazy weird Frankenstein guitar with like pickups from one thing and things from another. My first practice was at that. It was a studio we recorded the Inside demo at, someplace in like Hicksville or Hempstead. There was like these two crackhead brothers that owned it. Don't remember the name of the studio. And that was my first practice, and I didn't know what the hell. Like I couldn't chug. I couldn't do like no. Eddie was just like, play this, and I learned the songs that way. And I think the first Inside demo I'm not on, but my
Mhm.
name is on the thing. And then the first but I picked it up, I guess, pretty quickly by like being forced into it to overcome that kind of fears. And it was kind of easy to follow the songs, because Eddie wrote like all the music for all the songs, and it was very like, it was a certain style. It was that very early like Quicksand kind of
Yeah.
stuff, like that first record. So it was not like, it wasn't much intricate stuff I had to do. You know what I mean? And like, even like, I think within like the first month or two, we played like a live radio show in New Jersey. I have a tape of that somewhere. And yeah, so it just went kind of quickly, and like we ended up playing a lot of shows, but it was like I never had any input. And it wasn't until like we were, so when kind of Clockwise kind of was taking off, because they had the video and the record and like that record deal almost at that time. And I think we were on a tour, our first ever Inside tour. We did like a whole bunch of shows in Pennsylvania, ended up through Canada, and Eddie had to go away back to film, I think, that video, that big Clockwise video they did on the rooftop. And I played a show without him, and it was like completely terrifying. Like, I was just like, okay,
Nobody to lean
try
on.
to
Yeah, it
play
was all you.
Eddie's parts.
Yeah.
And I think after that, it kind of like got a lot more confidence. And then, of course, like Eddie left the band not too long after that tour, I think. And then I think like it was an interesting thing. It was like when Eddie left the band, everyone else was kind of standing around like, what are we going to do? And I was like, let's just practice. And like, we all kind of just like shut up and just practiced. And we quickly got John. And it wasn't until like John came over to like my parents' house one time, and I went to his house one time. And that's when I first kind of started writing songs. And like from then on, it almost became like 50-50 between me and John writing all the songs. And most of them worked out where it was like, we'd both just write parts that kind of fit together.
Mhm.
And I kind of just figured out a style. And you notice like the complete difference between that first Inside record and like the 7 inches is like, it's a different band.
Sure.
Like that's the band that became Inside for us.
And I was going to ask, like, Inside, definitely one of the more melodic of the Long Island hardcore / emo bands. Like, what was the influence at the time musically?
Yeah, it's the heart. There was like Malamo was really had a huge, like, he's a big Malamo and Tom Comerford, like, besides like loving, Bad Brains, Quicksand, all the hardcore stuff, like they're both huge like REM fans. Like Malamo probably knows every REM song, and like Malamo has a whole thing. Like I remember going to see like the Catherine Wheel with him, like all these kind of like UK bands. Yeah, he had like, and I think he's like maybe the Smiths and all that kind of stuff. So there was those just influences that we just decided just to go with that, like not to ignore that stuff.
Sure.
Like everyone likes a lot of that stuff, but they just want to do like
secretly,
just want to do a certain kind of screamy thing on Long Island at the time. But we were just like, screw it. So that's why some of the songs sound heavy, but with Malamo singing over it. And I think that kind of crossover-y kind of thing is what like Inside became like all the Tension guys loved Inside. They would tell us later on, like, oh, I play that when I'm hanging out with my girlfriend. Like, not the guys from Tension, but like some of their fans and like friends and fans. Like, so we ended up playing lots of shows, Tension. Like, lots, like, we ended up playing like a lot of Bizarro scene. I always call it like the Bizarro scene. So, but there was like a whole other scene of bands that you never saw before until you suddenly showed up at a show. You're like, where do all these guys come from?
Yeah.
And Inside went kind of in a funny direction for a bit of like trying to get a manager and stuff. And it was Brett that owned the record store that put out the 516 comp.
None of the above.
He was our manager for a little bit.
Okay.
But he never did anything for us. We signed a contract. Inside also got ripped off by a producer once. We paid money to this guy and he was recording us, and we found out through like someone else that he was ripping off bands by taking their money and never doing anything, and got into a big fight with this guy, like threatened to kill him. And we got some of the tapes back, but like they were incomplete DATs or ADATs or whatever. and that we can never like do anything with those songs. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Like we thought like we could do it. Inside got sponsored by Bug Clothing.
Oh yeah,
That was the caffeine
it's like
people.
like a raver brand. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were wearing all these t-shirts at a couple of shows. That was dumb. That was so
free
dumb.
T-shirts.
Oh, stop. Yeah, we played like a Bug like in-store show they did with some other bands in, I think that was Mass Pico, wasn't it? Oh, stop. Yeah, some of it was a bit ridiculous.
Where was that first Inside full length recorded?
First full, like not the gray one.
The one with the stick figure drawing on.
Yeah, that's at that crackhead studio.
Okay.
I keep saying that. Sorry, apologies to anyone who who might not be that anymore. But yeah, it was there. I forget the name of it, and someone's gonna be able to maybe comment on it somewhere.
Drop it in the comments, yeah.
Yeah, it's somewhere not too far from Bethpage, kind of Hicksville area, and I forget the name of the studio. I have a copy of that CD somewhere, and I'll have a look at it. I don't even know if it said it, but that was Sunny Side Up Records that put it out, which is Kyle, who used to do. He was one of the original like videographers of the whole scene. Like he must have like a huge collection. He lived way out east. He put on like some big shows in his backyard with Neglect and Might Have Matter. I think Silent Majority as well. And but we gave, I think it was Eddie or someone was in charge of handing over the songs and the song lists to be mastered. Maybe even General George might have had something to do with the mastering of that. And the wrong songs are on the CD. Like there's songs that are demo songs on the CD, and the songs have the wrong name on the CD.
They have the wrong name, so I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first one. And so it was Sunny Side. I think the record release for that we played with Super Touch somewhere out east on Long Island, but maybe even like Medford VFW Hall or something like that. Yeah. So that was that record, but that was and then I don't know I can't remember if Eddie was in the band or not when we did the 516 comp. He might have been, or if that was John or not. But that was the last. That was the last kind of those kind of era of songs. It was what's on that comp.
Yeah. And
then there was a bit of a hiatus there. And then when John joined, we played like a show out of state with him. And I remember maybe embarrassing you think, but John, we played like a VFW hall in Pennsylvania. And I think I remember even John mentioned like, so when do we get paid? And I was like, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. Like he knew, right? I think it was pretty funny.
Merch money's going into the gas tank.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But John's doing very well for himself now, writing music for freaking commercials and the metaverse and stuff like that.
Cool. So like as far as like early touring, what were the bands like you were trading shows with, and just like how were you going about that in the 90s pre internet?
Yes. So I mean, we had that whole connect with the PWAC, of course. So we played lots of shows with Silent Majority and stuff like that. But then there was like we had a connection, like Mike Dubin kind of helped us and a bit because him and Mike Malamo went to the same university in Baltimore. I can't remember the name. They went to the same college. But anyway, so we had that connect, and we started to play with some out of state bands like from that area, and we got onto some even shows through that connection. Like we played in DC with like even like Ink and Dagger and some really cool shows. We played with Elliot in Baltimore. I think even early Glassjaw played one of those shows with them in Baltimore. But yeah, like. That was the start of that, but then there was the first tour. So when Eddie was still in the band, it was us and Arnie Lightfoot, and that was the first time I met. I knew Neil from like shows and stuff.
Tetsuo was his old band.
Yeah, but yeah. There was Edgar and Tetsuo were always the two bands that would play together. That was Bob English, I think, and Edgar.
They did that split 7-inch.
So we knew Neil really well. I even remember Neil being badly assaulted at the PWAC and getting his jaw broken, and Neil had his mouth wired shut for a long time. It was bad. And So yeah, that was Neil, and that was that tour. We play with a lot of bizarre bands in Pennsylvania. And then, yeah, I guess what was really cool about that one is that we played in Pennsylvania, then we played in Canada, and we were always like a day behind in shows with The Promise Ring and Joan of Arc. And then I think the final show of that tour we played in, it might be someplace out just outside of Toronto. I want to say Guelph or something like this. We ended up playing with Promise Ring and Joan of Arc when Eddie was still in the band back then. And that like kind of like opened our eyes, I think, to a whole other kind of like, maybe that was the lead in for us into that kind of style of thing.
The Midwest emo thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to kind of start to sound a bit more like that, and a bit more like then Mineral happened, and Jimmy Eat World happened, and later on kind of like Far happened, and like you could see those influences inside. And we got to play with all those guys. We never got to play with Jimmy Eat World, but so that's where that kind of led to that. But we never had like a major connection with any other bands like outside of New York that would always come and want to play with Inside. Really, like, it didn't really happen for us. It was mostly like that Long Island thing. We played, you know, lots of shows at Silent Majority, on the Might of Prince's early days and stuff like that. And then so that was the first tour, and then so that's only when Eddie did with us, and then John joined the band, and then I guess I kind of took more of a role in pushing the tours and pushing the, you know, we're going on tour this time. And it always took a little bit of, you know, organizing to go away for a month, but we did it a lot. We did like maybe 2 or 3 summer tours, and we did a winter tour, and we'd go away for like 3 or 4 weeks at a time. And I felt like it was like, we got to play with so many different bands, like across the country. Some of them even like, you know, like, the Suicide Machines, where we got like a garbage can thrown at us by a guy with a mohawk in Seattle. This big band called the Impossibles. We're kind of a ska, play with them. Then we became really good friends with this band in Denver, Colorado called Apollo, and they actually came back to Long Island one time to play with us. And then we met Chris from Redwood, and we ended up playing all these amazing shows in California, and almost like built a second following for Inside kind of around that whole Santa Barbara, Goleta scene. This venue called the Pickle Patch, which like every giant band played at, and they would record the bands live there as well.
Steve Aoki lived there.
That was Steve Aoki's house. Yeah. He was there for those first shows. Like, he was this tiny kid, as far as I remember.
Now the biggest DJ in the world.
Exactly. It's nuts, right? So we played like also this place called Coos Cafe, which was like a really amazing place. I think that was in Fullerton or something like that. And that's where Jimmy Eat World shot the Rockstar video, their first video. It was in like the spot where you play. It was like a house that they turned into a coffee shop, and we slept in there, and it'd be like roaches clawing all over you at night. Yeah. So then Chris was from there and helped us with the shows, and he put out the next few records. Like Motherbox did a 7-inch for us. So Paul from Motherbox, and that connect was kind of through Silent Majority.
Yeah.
And then Chris put out another record or two with Paul at the same time. That was like the 7 inches to All Drug stuff. And then Chris from Redwood put out the final Inside record, which is like our favorite thing, I think, is that one. It just came out almost exactly how we thought it would come out. Like, we wanted it to come out. Like, I still think it sounds good. Like, I listen to it every once in a while. I'm like, it still sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, so that's how that kind of the tours went from that to that to that. I think we brought Movie Life on the tour with Eddie and the band, and actually Tom Comerford played bass on a bunch of those shows from the Movie Life. We went another tour with Scarab, so Antonio's old band Scarab. That was like a winter tour, and I think the rest of the tours were just on our own. But again, play with like a lot of like interesting stuff. Like, we played with like even in like that band Blue, the Blue Ontario, which was like, these are people that were all into kind of like that whole cursive scene and
Okay.
all of that kind of, yeah, all the Midwest guys. We had
Omaha, Saddle Creek.
crisscrossing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And you also went to Europe a couple times with Inside.
Yeah, well, no, it was once we went.
Only once.
So yeah, we were supposed to do, it was Italy. It was through kind of Mother Box. And then we were supposed to do a tour. It was supposed to be Italy and like Germany maybe and some other things, but that's when the Kosovo War broke out. So that was like late 90s. I want to say it was 98, 97. And so a lot of those shows got kind of like canceled or never happened. So we ended up doing almost the whole thing in Italy, with this band called the Bigots, or the Bigots Quartet. They were from Alessandria, not, and kind of in Italy, not too far from Milan, I think. And we we basically showed up with our guitars and our amps. They picked us up at the airport. We had never met them before, never spoke to them before. The singer comes up to us at the airport with like a total British accent, because it ends up that he was studying to be a translator. And they end up being the coolest guys ever. Like one of them had a vineyard, like his parents owned a vineyard. So we all kind of slept separately at different members of the band's houses while we were on tour, and coming back to their hometown, and then going off. We played like Rome, Milan, Turin, a bunch of other places. We played on live TV in Milan, 2 songs. I was interviewed like by a woman, and then she would translate it. There's a video of tape of that somewhere. I think it's the picture actually on the back of the My Funeral record is of us playing live on the TV. And so we did that, and became really good buddies with those guys, and they're still playing music, and they do like little reunions every once in a while as well. They were amazing. I don't know if you could find it online. It's the Bigots Quartet. There's some stuff on YouTube and stuff, but they were more of like a Get Up Kids kind of faster, a faster emo kind of stuff.
That's funny. Craig was actually in my Italian class at Hofstra.
And Volpe Italiano, the Italian wolf, they started calling him.
That's funny. Yeah, he was like showing off like his little bit of Italian that he learned on tour.
Yeah.
In the class.
Yeah, that was his nickname there, Volpe Italiano. And we had it was, so we were all like really enjoying. So every venue you'd play in Italy, basically they'd feed you, they'd give you wine.
Yep.
Like even send you to a nearby restaurant. It was all covered. And even when you played like this big squat that's in Turin, that Mind Over Matter played a bunch, because actually we were sleeping in these bunk beds above, and I'd see like graffiti saying Mind Over Matter tour like 4 or 5 years before that. And even they like would feed you this big pasta feast and wine. And we had a thing like we would be waking up extremely hungover every day. And so coming for, your lips would be turning blue or whatever from all the wine. It was like lips turn blue, must take 2 days off of drinking. Yeah, we did a lot of drinking, because we had like 2 or 3 shows, and then like 2 or 3 days off, 2 or 3 shows, 2 to 3 days off. It was like kind of spread out over a few weeks.
Did you guys play that venue in Bologna, the Freakout Club? It's like in the middle of an anarchist commune. It was like a pretty common tour spot for a lot of bands.
I thought that there was one that's like that in Turin that we played. I don't think we played the Bologna one, and it's surrounded by all this crazy sculptures and artwork. Yeah. I think there's a one in Turin that's very similar. That's the one that we played. And like I think back in the day they used to like close it off so like the Nazi skinheads wouldn't come in and start fights. And yeah. Wild. And you'd have to play for longer. Like there wasn't really, it was just you sometimes.
And the shows start late too.
Yeah. And you had to give a list of like what songs you were going to play, because it was all supposed to be taxed. And royalties, and I think the Italian band would always put fake names of songs, and it was strange, but fun, like real, like kids, like even like in Italy, and even in when we go and play out shows out west in like Montana and stuff with Inside, like we loved playing these places that either they didn't care and they just danced to whatever. And the kids in Italy would just go nuts. They never heard us before, and even in like places like Montana, like no bands would ever come through it. And I remember we were on tour with, I think it was Movie Life. Well, we did one tour. We played Missoula and Great Falls, Montana. and the kids went nuts and were pretending to even like, mouthing songs they didn't know what they were. And then we actually went back with the Movie Life the year after that, and I'm pretty sure we played song for song with the Movie Life. We set up across from each other and took turns playing songs.
Wow.
And it was so much fun. Like, yeah. And the kids were
That's
just
cool.
going nuts, and they didn't know what they were listening to.
Right.
They were just loving that there was music there,
Yeah, yeah.
That was some of the best, like playing random spots with Inside in like Wisconsin, Montana, South Dakota, like was some of the funnest shows. And they didn't know, they had no idea who we were. Didn't know any of the songs.
Before that, music became kind of a household thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Inside's your last album comes out and you break up pretty quickly after.
Right away. Yeah. Yeah. Like all things, like
Yeah.
everyone kind of gets just sick of each other for a bit. And then you kind of like, everyone stays friends. We try, some of us tried doing bands together and stuff, which some of us did. But like we're all still good friends. Like we're all like, I think it just ran its course.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that might have came down to like us trying to make it and it never happened, and thinking like we should have been bigger than we were. It just never happened. And but I mean, like that's like, a lot of that's our own fault. Do you know what I mean?
So but shortly after that now, so my band, The Waiting Process and Silent Majority, move into a practice space together.
Yeah.
Within a couple months, both bands break up.
Yeah.
Myself and James from The Waiting Process start Heads versus Breakers with Rich.
Yep.
And you join with Tommy and basically the rest of Inside to start Blood Red.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great fun.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember like, it was like, I never really played in a band with my brother before until then. And I think we maybe did some song, like we practiced a bit without Tommy. Maybe we might have wrote some songs, and maybe we might have had someone trying to be the singer. I forget who. I forget. But yeah, and Tommy came on, and like it was like right away was like, straight into like ad-libbing, and made a song the first practice.
Yeah.
And it was
you
fun.
You would switch to bass, right? You
switched to bass. Yeah, we switched
it.
We switched it up. We were just like, let's just switch it up. And I loved it. Like I think I love playing bass a lot more than guitar.
Okay.
And I love, like, even now when I'm writing music now, like I write everything on bass with a drum track, and that's how it all starts. I was always more of like a rhythm kind of guitar player anyway. And I just love that. And like, I loved clicking with Craig, and I think we came up with some really cool stuff and tried to do things a bit differently. And I had a lot of influences. I mean, we have that U2 influence, obviously, with growing up, all of us. But I was into that kind of just rhythmic playing, not trying to do like bass solos and things.
More like a post-punk influence, kind of like that.
Yeah,
that early 80s kind of thing.
Yeah. So that was my kind of, I love that stuff. And but Blood Red was awesome. We played some cool shows, and we tried to go on tour, and like there were like tours we played to hardly anybody. And and I think the last Blood Red tour, I kind of just like decided to start giving everyone a per diem every day, just to enjoy themselves and eat and food and all this kind of stuff. And I think we came back and we owed the record label a bunch of money, Initial Records. And they actually was like, so do you want to settle up for the CDs? And I was like, what?
Nope.
Yeah, I think, Initial Records didn't last too much longer after that. We played Crazy Fest a couple of times, twice. That was fun. And like, but it was mostly like hanging out. We were just hanging out. And like, even like, like Baldwin and stuff came with Crazy Fest with us in the van. And it was just fun. Just, we weren't taking it seriously. We weren't trying to like be like this steady band or anything. And
that can be a very important part of being a band, though. Like, obviously being able to enjoy each other's company. It's a huge part of it.
Yeah. And we got to record, like back then, our friend Juan, who recorded most of our stuff for us, he was engineer at the Magic Shop in New York City, a big crazy studio, and we almost recorded this stuff for like nothing. Like it was so cheap. And I remember even one one of the first nights we were there, they had couches turned on their sides to be out of the way, and I was going to put a couch down to fall asleep on because we were recording at nighttime, and the couch rammed into the wall into a bunch of Vox amplifiers, and one of the knobs got pushed in and broken into the amplifier, and I was like, Juan, and he's like, that's fucking Lenny Kravitz's guitar amplifier. And I was like, we were like, fuck. And so we spent like an hour or two finding the exact knob and parts in like the engineer of the basement of the studio, which where we shouldn't have been, like fixing this amplifier. And like not too long after, he's on Saturday Night Live with that amplifier.
Wow.
And it worked, thank God. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's the story with that.
Yeah. I mean, as you're doing Blood Red now, as I said, like that type of quote unquote emo is like starting to become mainstream, like a household word. So like what were your thoughts on that? And like, how did that hit you? Like seeing that happen, this music that you kind of helped to pioneer in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. I kind of fell out of listening to it. Like I never like followed what was happening with Brand New and Taking Back Sunday, and even when the Movie Life made it, like even though I loved like the early Movie Life stuff, once they kind of went that level, I don't know where I was mentally. I think I was tuned out. And then like by the time like Blood Red ended, and then when they were like really taking off that stuff, like I was like already moved to Ireland, I think 2004. Like that's when I remember then. It wasn't until I was living in Ireland for a couple of years, and then I guess YouTube was taking off more, and I can kind of look at what was going on. I was like, oh crap, that's kind of a cool video, like and I would like joke with my wife like, hey, that guy used to be in my band, and that band Brand New opened for us. Like this like anecdotes, like, hey, nope, but nothing sour. Like I never felt like they were doing stuff that we did, or whatever. They took it to a whole other level. It's just like a different thing altogether. So I kind of lost connection there from around 2004. So kind of out of the game for a while.
So around 2004, you're making plans to move away. You do the Inside reunion show. So at that place out east.
So it was supposed to be essentially like the last Blood Red show. Then with all our friends like Headverse Breakers, Clockwise, but we worked it so like, okay, we're gonna do an Inside show. Everyone's been asking for this. Like it's been 5 years essentially since Inside stopped playing. So I worked it like, okay, Dearly Departed's gonna play, Blood Red's gonna play, we're all gonna be there, and we never advertised that Inside was playing, but it was the special guests. And I don't know, like 2004 was Facebook a thing? I don't remember. MySpace. It was MySpace.
Might have been a thing.
Yeah. So I think it was on it was kind of like talked about that. Oh yeah, Inside's playing. And then it ended up being a crazy, gigantic show. And it was just the most fun, super emotional for me. Like, and that I'll never move back to I didn't know like would I never move back, and I never moved back. So it's like it was very, and I like we have some video footage of that show, and it's amazing. But I really really want to know who were all the other people videotaping that show. Like there must be videotapes of every band.
Yeah,
there must be video there. I've seen videos of a different angles of Inside playing. But there must be like people. I really wish people would just like get that stuff put onto YouTube or something. That stuff. If you're listening to this
and you have that,
like definitely like Headverse Breakers, Dearly Departed, Blood Red, Inside, Kill Your Idols. I think played that show too.
They did play as well.
Like there's got to be video of a lot of that stuff, and that show was kind of like an end of a thing. Like then, like, well, for me it was obviously, and then not either just before that or just after that. Like Blood Red had a whole 10-song record written, and we went into Merch Direct at that time, and Beck from Glassjaw recorded me and Craig doing this, the drums and bass, and I think Tom might have did a scratch guitar thing, and those songs disappeared forever.
Oh,
Nothing ever happened. The guys, once I left as the kind of the taskmaster of Blood Red, I guess, of when we're going to practice and when we're going to play shows. Once I left, Scott Martin had started kind of practicing with Blood Red, take over his bass, but they just kind of stopped, and they never finished those songs. Like Tommy had them all written. Like some of them we played live before. Tommy had all the lyrics, I think, written for the most part, and just they never finished the record, and I think it's gone forever.
Wow.
It was 10 songs we recorded in one setting, me and Craig. And it was sounded sick. It was in the big warehouse of Merch Direct. And it's gone. It was all done to a hard drive. Maybe Beck has it someplace. And I think I remember pushing Tom Comerford or someone or my brother to ask him, and he could never get an answer where they went to. Maybe they're a bunch of Glassjaw songs now. I don't know.
Quite possible. Yeah.
I don't know.
Cool. So
jokes.
So headed overseas, what was like the culture shock like there? Like what how were you settling in? Like what were you doing for work and all that?
Yeah, so I used to go to Ireland a lot as kids. I had like lots, like obviously my dad was from Roscommon, so we went to the farm there a lot. Like every few years we'd go. And I did one trip the winter before I moved and decided then to move. Like I had just like gotten dumped, living with a girl, and I was all brokenhearted, and I was just like, when I came on holidays, and I was like, I'm gonna move here, and I just did. And so I knew what I was getting myself into as far as like the weather and the kind of the culture, but what I didn't realize I could come to Galway was like, this is like a crazy multicultural kind of city, like full of everyone from Europe, and kind of a hippie vibe, bit of a singer-songwriter on the street vibe, but no, like for me, no kind of like punk rock hardcore scene outside of like there was a few people that would play in bars and stuff, but I just never got into it. There's like more of a big like kind of cover band scene here, and it just wasn't for me. Like I tried like playing with some guys, a bunch of Polish guys that I work with, and it just didn't work out. So I kind of let it go. But before I moved to Ireland, I was living in Queens, and I really got, like a lot of people around that time, really got into kind of a read Kitchen Confidential, and decided, I want to do the chef life thing, and like Food Channel was hopping back then with all this cool stuff on it, and I kind of felt like I could reproduce a lot of stuff just by watching it. And so I got a part-time job while I was doing an office job in New York City, like at a restaurant in Brooklyn, just as like a prep cook, and I guess you call it then. And that's where I kind of got the kind of the desire to do that. So when I moved to Ireland, I was like, I'm going to work in a restaurant. But when I came here, I realized, okay, so everyone in Ireland wants to know, are you a qualified chef? Did you go to college for it? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like you couldn't really just get a job. Like it just wasn't what I expected. So I ended up getting a job as a head kitchen porter, which is a dishwasher, at this private hospital that was just opening up. So it was like a hospital, but like not. So we have like kind of have like like universal healthcare type thing, public healthcare here, kind of in Ireland. It's little bit mixed system, but this is a private hospital with all consultants and like a grand piano, and like the patients could order whatever they wanted when they were getting their cosmetic surgery. And so I got a job as that, and then within maybe like 2 weeks, I went from washing dishes to like being a cook there. Like I just showed my potential, and it went from that, and then just kind of worked in like that to another restaurant out in the country. And then from that, kind of a few other bits and pieces to being a fishmonger. And then then teaching fish cookery at that fishmonger's, had a cookery school above it, and I took over that. And so I kind of just went into that kind of world either for the past 19 years, for the most part, I've either worked in restaurants or as a fishmonger. And it's just that kind of like connection with food and seafood became my thing. Like, and that's what I kind of really focused on here. And actually, when I left that first fishmonger's job, I just got kind of sick, as you kind of do in this kind of environment. You burn out of places after a few years. You kind of want to move on to a new restaurant or move on to a new job. And I saw that a restaurant I was following was like looking for a chef, and it just happened to be like right when I was leaving that job. I maybe sent a Facebook message or something to her. I was like, "Oh, you still looking?" She's like, "Yeah, can you know how to do lunch?" And I was like, "Sure." And I ended up starting this job at what now is like one of the most popular restaurants in the entire country. This restaurant called Kai, Kai, in Galway. Jess and Dave. Jess is from New Zealand, and Dave is from Ireland. Husband and wife team opened this restaurant, and like I was there for maybe about 3 years and worked my way up to being sous chef for the restaurant. And like they're massively now like Michelin Bib Gourmand, Michelin Green Star, which is like a sustainability star kind of thing of the Michelin Guide. And like Jess is on TV now, Jess is cookbooks. And so I was there for a while, and like amazing experience. I learned more doing that, working at that place, than like anything I could ever imagine paying for. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't need to go to school to be a freaking chef. You need to wash dishes, and then you'll know if you want to work in a restaurant.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you go to college? This is what happens in Ireland. People going to college, showing up a restaurant, thinking that it was going to be a certain way, and then they leave, and then there's a big chef shortage, and like you got to wash dishes.
Similar to being a musician, there's no school that's going to prepare you for sleeping on a floor with roaches after a show.
I think that, but I think there is a level of musicianship, depending what you want to go into, that like maybe, you know, going into a classical type environment is a different thing, you know, it's something I'll never comprehend. What did it, it's different, not the same. It's more math, like it's
reading and
it's not for me.
Cool. So just settling down, getting married. How'd you meet your wife?
At my first job.
Okay. She
was a summer position bringing food to those private patients. We met there, and that was so I moved to Ireland in like May 2004, so it'll be 19 years now. And then we met her in like late June, early July.
Oh, right away.
And we've been together ever since. Got married in 2008. We have a daughter now who's turning 13 this summer. And then my wife, through that whole time, was doing her, her bachelor's, her master's, her PhD. And then she just got a job in Melbourne. And we're moving to Australia in 6-7 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm wrapping up here. So it's a whole new world. And like, I guess, and then in the meantime of that, like, so I work in all these jobs, and then I started really getting into fishing again as Tommy, and I saw them getting into his kind of surf casting stuff. I kind of started exploring that side of it here. And at part-time on the weekends, I think I do guiding for taking people fishing for hiking and fishing trips and stuff. But I had no idea what I'm going to do when I get to Australia. I have no plans for work at the moment.
Plenty of water there, then.
My plan is I will be putting together IKEA furniture for the first few months. And then, so it's like a whole nother kind of like I was 30, nearly 30 years in New York, nearly 20 years here. Yeah. So who knows, man, it's going to be another like life there,
I was going to ask, like, as far as like raising a child in Ireland, obviously times are different now in general from when we were kids, but what are you seeing, like, as far as having a teenager, like culturally, what they're going through?
It's extremely, especially in the west of Ireland where we are, an extremely safe place to raise someone. Like, it's comparative, like when I talk to Steve or Tommy, like not like, just in kind of passing about like, I know like you don't worry about like school shooters and
shootings.
shit in this
Yeah.
country. It's like it's a very safe kind of thing. Like, but I guess yeah, she's of the age where she grew up with an iPad. So that's completely different to me. It's so much more of that than rather being outside playing with friends in the neighborhood and stuff. But like I'm more like, I think when we move to Australia, it's going to be back to that New York thing again. Like it's a city. Like Melbourne's like a properly big city. So yeah. But she's into like, she's got her own style. She's into like cool shit, and she plays the piano. And like during COVID, we were like writing songs together, and like I was
Nice.
recording them and some videos of us. Like, yeah, she knows what she's up to. She's very artistic and stuff. She gets that from her mom too. And like our house is just full of like paintings and drawings, and she goes fishing with me and stuff. She's just a really cool kid. I got really lucky.
Yeah,
She's not like a brat or a bully or that's all I can ask for. Cool shit. Like,
yeah. So musically now, you did the one Inside reunion that was like 2009.
yeah,
Yeah,
2009.
2010
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
I think, yeah. So that was January 1st, 2010, because then my daughter was born in August. We found out we were having my wife found out she was pregnant while we were in New York for that reunion. Those reunion shows. Yeah. And I think John found out that he was having a kid that same day or week. Yeah, so those were fun shows. And I remember even like when we were trying to figure out who was gonna play and stuff. And I think I really saw that really cool bridge and tunnel video they did with like riding the bikes to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah.
And that was like, I was like, I want bridge and tunnel to play. Yeah, so it was cool like playing then that like I never even heard, like, because I was so out of touch. And then yeah, so we haven't that was the last Inside stuff. And we've got offered lots of stuff since then. And we don't have any particular plans for Union, but there is 25-year anniversary of my funeral is next summer, and that's all I got to say about that at the moment.
Wow.
But you never know. Next year is 25 years of that record is next year.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I know like we get offered stuff a lot. But it just doesn't. It's just not. Not. It has to be for us. For me, it's like not opening for someone. I don't want to be reunion for open, like to be even. It doesn't matter who the band is. And there's been big bands that we were offered to open for. I'm just like, no, it's not. Like it's not the right thing. If it's Inside, it's going to be a VFW type show, or even like those shows in Amityville we did, like that kind of small show. Because I've played those big stages before, like even some of the cooler Inside shows, like at Hofstra, we played for we opened for Handsome, and I was just like, this is just too big. Like, I don't know, it's not. Yeah. I like small packed shows. I hate giant stages. Like, I don't want to play a place like I'm not gonna name places. I don't want to play a giant stage with a barricade or fucking shit like that.
Okay.
No.
So it's going to be a more intimate thing if it does.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Unless we'll see who knows? Who knows if it's even going to happen?
Then that brings us to your latest musical project, which is Walk Out.
Yeah.
With our friend Tia.
Yeah.
How'd you get hooked up with her?
We've never physically met.
Really?
Yet. Her and Tom have, not me. So it was all kind of a COVID born thing, I think. So originally it was myself, and we tried getting Craig to do like drums, and at first it just wasn't working. Like, it was just hard trying to get everyone during COVID to like have the gear at home to record the stuff. It just didn't work. And I think Tom at one point, my brother, was just like, figure out how to do it with Logic or whatever. And I figured it out. and so I ended up doing all the bass and the drum stuff. And then we talked to some people who tried to do some vocals for us. That didn't work out. And then Joe suggested Tia, and Tia was like completely down. I think I just texted her and she was like, yeah, I'm down. And I was like, okay, we have these songs. I'll put it on Dropbox for you. Well, I sent her the MP3 files. I had it all mixed. So I would send the bass and the drums to Tom. Tom would do the guitars, send it back to me. Because we both had Logic. And then Tia has a setup where we basically, I give her a mix down of the song. She puts it into GarageBand, does like the vocals. I think the first bunch of songs we did with her, she just did on like the mic on like the headphones, and it sounds awesome. And then she sends it back to me, and then I mix it all down, just all in Logic. And yeah, it's been great. Like we did a whole bunch. I don't know how many songs we have now, like nearly 15, 20 songs or something like that. And then we have 2 more coming out very soon. So I just sent her all the mix down of a new song. And then Tom, just before I came out with you guys, I was listening to all the guitar stuff Tom did for another song. And we just said, we'll just keep it like that. Like if we ever get to play live, be fun. But like we wrote so many songs this specific way that it's like there's no muscle memory for these songs.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I'd have to learn them.
It would take
all
some
again.
practice. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of that happening. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause I almost like will create like drum loops or whatever on Logic, and I'll write to that. Like, so there was never like me and a drummer trying to figure out the song.
No human interaction. Yeah.
No, it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird, but it's fun at the same time. Like you get to mess around with a lot of stuff, and
yeah,
there's so much you could do with Logic. It's great fun.
So what were you listening to for inspiration for that project?
Lots of kind of Cure stuff, and even like some of the new stuff is like Breeders type stuff, even some kind of like Radiohead stuff. And I listened to, I think, a lot of Biffy Clyro like over the past bunch of years. I like on repeat those records. Like I think I wore them out and I haven't listened to them in the past year. So that kind of stuff. And like I'd actually go back. Like I was never a massively into even like Fugazi and stuff. It just wasn't my thing. But I found myself going and starting to listening to that kind of stuff again. Or like, I gave it like years ago, but listening to it and just appreciating kind of different timings and stuff like that. And so like that kind of stuff. And like and again, I never listened to like Rival Schools, so I started listening to that stuff again. Like just all this kind of music that I don't know if I dismissed it or I kind of just was in a different place and I missed out on it. But I really appreciating that kind of stuff. And it's almost like sometimes I kind of listen to that stuff for reference to like levels of stuff now. I'm like, because I really love like the sound. So that's kind of where I am with that. And like we do sometimes it was like for a new song coming up, like I was like, I'll say to Tom, like, what are you thinking for like vocal style type thing for that? And like we'll bring up like different bands and stuff like, oh yeah, definitely that kind of style. And like Tia is real cool. Like I just send her a message and I'll say like, like and I'll name drop a couple of bands and then she'll come back with like a few different versions of stuff, and then she'll just layer and layer and layer. So I have so much to choose to work with in the tracks. Yeah. And same with Tom. Like some stuff Tom will do, and like I'll just like reverse his. I think a couple of songs I've just reversed his whole guitar track, and like if it works out, it works out. And lots of keyboard. Tom, like I'm like Tom, just do a keyboard stuff for this song, and I'll do guitars for this one. So some of the new stuff I'm doing the guitar, bass, and drums, and Tom's doing the keyboards, and right. Yeah, it's great fun. But Tom is busy. Tom's like a full teacher. He's building half pipes in his backyard. Yeah. he's got his band with Malamo as well, and Tia's got like 50 bands, whatever she's got going on. Yeah, so everyone's busy, so it's just kind of a leisure thing, but it's great fun.
Kind of like a production project
Yeah,
to do.
yeah. It was just during COVID, and we just burned through songs. Like what I tend to do is if there's like say if I go down to my wife's family in Cork, I'll bring the laptop, and like during the times where like maybe they're all watching like a TV show or something that I'm not into, I'll just write a song like right on the laptop with the headphones on, sitting in the same room as them,
Right.
and just use the keyboard as the musical typing or whatever instead of like the keyboard.
Yeah.
So handy.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so bringing it back to Lindenhurst now. I know it's been a very long time since you've been here, but
Yeah.
I'm interested in some of your answers since you're a food guy.
Okay.
So we do a little section called Best and Worst of the Hearst, where we ask you like what your favorite places to go and eat were in town growing up.
Yeah.
So John, you wanna take it away?
Yeah. We're gonna start with a new one here. What was your favorite? What was the supermarket your family frequented when you were younger?
Okay. Very young. It was Pathmark and Copeg.
Gotcha.
But then that got sketchy.
It was my mother made me hold her hand in that parking lot. Yeah. It was like an open air swap meet in that parking lot all the time.
Yeah. And then it was straight up King Cullen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, King Cullen and North Lindenhurst.
Gotcha. And never Wallbounds?
No, never. Well, later on, my mom got into that, started doing that, but it was for my whole childhood. It was King Cullen. Like I remember when they got the first snack bar I've ever seen in a fucking in a store, in a supermarket.
Yeah,
like TSS, which was in West Babylon, had like a restaurant inside, and then Woolworths had a restaurant inside.
Yeah, Woolworths had a lunch counter.
Yeah, but those were like restaurants, but like King Cullen had a snack bar. We were like, holy shit. Like we'd be loving to go shopping because then we get like a freaking pretzel or a hot dog or something. Yeah. So King Cullen would be the majority. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Pizza place. What was the pizza place you frequent? I'm gonna guess Dominic's because it was 2 blocks away from you.
Dominic's 100%. Yeah. And like, yeah, and it's still to me in my mind, it's the best pizza in the world, even though it was probably.
I'm gonna tell you, it's not. I live around the block from there now, and
yeah. but my favorite is actually Albert's.
Okay,
the square sauce on top.
Yeah.
Got certain flavor, but like Lindenhurst wise, it was Dominic's. So when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I was hanging out. The crew I hung out with in Catholic school, one of the girls, Fran Antonacci, she lived very close to town, and she had is it Mr. G's, the place that was right? Yeah. That's the place close to Ruby Soho's, right? Just
by Musicland, yeah. When Musicland was over there.
Yeah. That parking lot across from the Texaco. Yep. So that would be like I'd say next after Dominic's, I would have eaten in there more than anywhere else because she was like down with a lot of those guys that worked in there, and that would be our spot. And that was good. That was good.
Chinese food.
Chinese. So we weren't a big Chinese food takeout family.
Gotcha.
But our friends of ours from OLPH, the Lamb family, Alistair Lamb, their family owned a Chinese place next to where the Army Navy store was, across from the bowling alley in Lindenhurst.
Okay.
Across from Warner's Bowl.
The place that's still there, Hunan Taste or whatever.
I can't remember what the name of the thing was.
Yeah.
But that would be our spot. And then as I got a bit older, I loved the way that the place next to 7-Eleven.
Oh, Hing.
The place that overfills everything.
Yes.
Yeah. And I that would be my jam, like growing up, where like we'd be getting like maybe 40s and stuff and walking around. I'd be beef lo mein, chicken lo mein from that place. And they overfilled it. And like the pepper steak with onions, all that kind of. When I would hang out with the Migueles twins, with the kids I skated with, all through high school, and they lived a block or two away from that.
Where was the spot to get the 40s in those days?
That's the Ellie in Copeg. Okay. So it was the deli with the D was knocked off the sign, ELI, So it's on Hoffman between Lindenhurst and Copeg. It's a Spanish bodega.
Gotcha.
And I literally had a Lindenhurst high school ID when I was in 11th and 12th grade that I typed a different birth date into and laminated it. And I looked like I was 12, and they would sell me 40s and 64s of Old E and Colt 45.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I would be able to drink in, what's the place along the track? Just if you're going back then on Hoffman, along the tracks, that pub on the right, not Duke's. No, where's Duke's? Duke's on Sunrise, is it?
No, Duke's is on Hoffman, and it's before Wellwood. Okay,
yeah. I'll
show you. I'm ironically wearing a Duke's neutral corner shirt at the moment.
I was drinking in Duke's in 11th or 12th grade.
Okay,
with the same thing because a friend of mine's brother was the bartender there.
Yeah,
and I look like I was 12 years old. Yeah. I hung out with a lot through, like, I had this whole crew of like girls I was friends with that were all like soccer players and stuff. And they were even soccer players in Lindenhurst High School as well, like proper, like the top with the girls team. And so I like experienced that whole side of parties, that whole jock kind of thing as well. So I was down with I was kind of down with everybody. You know what I mean? No one ever gave me shit. One time, one person tried to give me shit in high school, and like one of my gigantic friends like put an end to that. But I was like kind of just friends with everybody. Yeah. And I actually tried playing soccer myself. I scored an own goal in my first game. And I tried wrestling in 9th grade as well.
Oh, no.
So in 9th grade, when I was in high school, so 1989 was my first. September 89, I started in Lindenhurst High School. I was maybe 76 pounds.
Ooh.
I was tiny as hell. Like, I growth spurt even after high school. I grew and so the Lenny Freeze, the Freeze family, they were a big wrestling family in Lindenhurst. Lenny was like state champ or county champ or something. They needed that lowest weight class, and I literally got bullied into joining the wrestling team. Just so it didn't matter if I lost or won,
just to fill a quota.
And you would get a base points, I think, for having someone in the thing for each meet. And I was the worst freaking. I just lost every single. I gave up before the end of the season, I think. Yeah. But anyway, next, any more food questions?
That's a bit about it on food. I was going to ask: is there a teacher or class in the high school that you remember that stuck out?
Yeah. So there was media. Is that Mr. DeLuca? Is it?
He was Dr. DeLuca by the time I was there, but yeah.
There you go. Short, kind of like a.
He looked Luigi like Al from Quantum Leap, but like with a beard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So me and I think Baldwin might have been in my class, and Ryan, and we made some very culturally inappropriate movies today. Nothing racist, but not very sensitive to certain communities. And we did a lot just edits of like skate videos, and like he thought we were making the videos. So him, Tracy, of course, that class was amazing too. And then Bolello, I had a political theory class, and I think that was the first time I felt like kind of I could enter a grown-up conversation of things, you know what I mean? That was, I think, in 12th grade though. That was like what this, political theory. That was cool. Yeah, that was my favorite. Like, DeLuca for sure. The media class was the best.
That's about it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on like favorite hangout spot. Can you name one?
Yeah. Oh, geez, favorite hangout spot. Fireman's Park, the high curve, we're skating. Like, skateboarding was my thing forever and ever and ever. Like, I skated up to living in Ireland, like, and then I hurt myself a lot in many different ways the past 19 years, broke a lot of different things, but I can't do it anymore. I can't jump anymore like that. But skating was my thing. So that was my crew was like all skaters, even at shows at the PWAC, I'd be skating after every show inside the PWAC, and like me and Brian Meehan and my brother Steve a little bit, and like a few other people I don't remember their names, but we'd have that whole smooth surface in the PWAC to skate on, like up until like 12:30, 1 o'clock at night. And even in like the old place that Christian McKnight and them had, like a whole other kind of PWAC style place that was in Mineola or something.
Deja One, or
maybe, yeah.
There was the spot in Bayshore shortly after.
No, this was in Nassau County. I think Silent Majority played with like Earth Crisis there, and Sick of
There
It All.
was like a big ramp and a rail right out in front of it that seemed like it would be perfect to skate out. You know what I mean? Because I remember waiting on the lines to get into Deja.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I missed out on the Bayshore version of that because I think Inside was on tour a lot that summer, and I missed out on a bunch of shows.
There's only a few shows.
Yeah. That's about it.
So that brings us to the last question. This might be very difficult, but do you have a favorite band from Lindenhurst?
Favorite band from Lindenhurst? Oh man.
I'm going to say besides Silent Majority, since that's your brother.
Yeah, definitely Mind Over Matter.
Yeah.
You know, it was my first ever show. Was it me, Tommy, Rich, I think even James Tunney that I worked with at the OLPH as well. And we went into the train and saw Mind Over Matter at ABC No Rio with Necrocidia. And I think myself and James Tunney never got to see Mind Over Matter. We had to leave, but Tommy and Rich stayed. And John LaFata was actually in my homeroom in high school, but we never talked. And I remember it was ABC No Rio. There was all these crack deals going on outside and like crazy shit going on in that neighborhood back then. So this was 1990, 91, maybe 92 at the latest. So, but I remember they had a van, and that's the first time I met kind of like Artie, Eddie Reyes, and Scott Martin, because I knew who George was from high school and I knew who John was from high school. And yeah, so I think Mind Over Matter for me would be, my favorite from Lindenhurst for sure.
Same.
Yeah. It's just and then you could see each record
ahead of their time,
and each record is different, and it just gets better and better. And yeah, it's awesome.
Okay. So that brings us to our very last question. If you could describe Lindenhurst to somebody who's never been there, what would you tell them? I
always say to people, because coming abroad from here, like what I described Lindenhurst first was, so we're Lindenhurst. I'm always, this is how I describe it first. I always say, the Amityville Horror House. It's the town next to that. And I'm like, like the Wonder Years. Well, it's kind of like that. And the dad is from Lindenhurst. So I kind of like say it's like the Wonder Years, but like a little bit rougher. But I just describe it. It's like a big, small town, It was, I know I describe it as Coma's, like it was very white growing up. Do you know what I mean? In like a weird, like secluded way for us. Like, it wasn't until like I was in high school where I ever was in a class with someone who wasn't white. Do you know what I mean? Like I was like, it was weirdly zoned in a way where it was like its own little world. Do you know what I mean? It was not diverse place outside of like, I don't count Irish, Italian, German.
Different colors of white. Yeah.
So it was a very like insular, like place, I guess, to grow up in, full of a lot of like characters who are like straight out of movies. Like it is like you had your people that could have been in Goodfellas. You had, it had your jocks from the movie. It had your freaks from the movie. Like if I in high school walking with girls we had a walkout in high school to protest some kind of taxes or something. I don't remember freaking what it was. And I remember the first time walking with these girls, Shannon and Heather, shout out to them. OG like punk rock kids and jocks driving by and yelling freaks, like Lindenhurst is like a movie. Lindenhurst is like
Yeah.
a movie. It's like a movie.
Yeah.
It's all the things that you reference in a movie about America, you could see in Lindenhurst.
It all happened here. Yeah.
All there. Like, I remember kids. Yeah. Lots of crazy shit happened when we were kids. Like mafia stuff. Like kids getting shot by people for trespassing. Do you guys remember this?
No.
Up on Wellwood Avenue, and a kid that I went to high school, his older brother, like either was drunk or something, went into the guy's front yard. The guy came out and shot him in the head, killed him, and got away with it.
Whoa.
Like we experienced all this crazy stuff.
That's wild.
Like
I remember but there was a kidnapping, right? Wasn't there, where someone got like kidnapped the jock or something like that? That was
there's a whole Silent Majority song about that. But and later on there was a weird family connection where someone we know was dating someone in that family. But anyway, yeah. And I think that guy works for Homeland, is a government agent now or something.
Channeled that into something else.
The one that was the one that was tied up.
The captured one.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Very,
very interesting.
There's also the phenomenon that Heads versus Breakers named themselves after the metalheads versus the breakdancers.
Exactly.
Legendary fights that would go down.
There was that. Yeah, down at Fireman's Park, there'd be rumbles. You heard of like there's a rumble at Fireman's.
Yeah.
Between Breakers and the Heads. And we were like, what? Really? This is real? Yeah. It had everything. It had every 80s movie thing happened in that town.
Every trope, yeah.
It is Lindenhurst it's just like it's a prime example of 1980s cinema. It's just it had everything in it.
Yeah.
You know, you had Hicks, you had people who worked in the city
Guidos,
who were like all coming back with their, like their Wall Street job, cops, firemen. It had every, like we're in the center of Long Island, like right in that spot of Long Island where we have rich people to one side, poor people the other side.
They're coming and going. Yeah.
A petri dish of humanity. Yeah.
And it was pretty level. Like, I think I never felt like outclassed by anyone else in Lindenhurst.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like maybe now, I don't know, but I just never felt that, yeah, I might be contradicting myself a little bit with some of that stuff, but anyway, yeah, I guess describe it as like, it's like what you see in America on TV is the way I describe it.
Right. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Vinny.
No problem, guys. Awesome. It was great to see you guys. I'll be home for a brief stop for Australia.
Yeah.
I'll give you guys a shout.